Good day, everybody. My name is Dennis Collier. I'm a registered dietitian. I have a master's degree in kinesiology, and for over a decade, I have taught at the single greatest university on planet Earth today, which is, of course, the University of Toronto. Huh? We're not the single greatest university on planet Earth today? Well, what number did we come? Number 4? Who the hell beat us? Harvard? Harvard can kiss ass. Well, at least we beat McGill. University of Toronto's own Heather Bansley has represented Canada at the Olympic Games no less than 3 separate occasions. There are only 4 Canadian volleyball athletes in history who have competed so many times, and Heather is the only female player in that group. It was during her stellar career as an indoor university player where Heather was introduced to beach volleyball. She made her mark quickly, representing Canada for the first time at the 2007 World Junior Championships, 5th place at the Rio Olympics, 5th place at the Tokyo Olympics, and concluding her Olympic career in glorious fashion under the Eiffel Tower in 2024. Heather Bansley, please tell us where you were born and raised.
I was born in London, Ontario, and I grew up in Waterdown, Ontario, and I eventually moved to Toronto, where I went to university.
I hate to deviate from my standard set of questions, but tell us again, Heather, where'd you go to university?
I'm a proud alumni of U of T, University of Toronto.
I was thinking, I thought there was a possibility she might wear some kind of varsity blues paraphernalia, and that would have been cool if you did. I wouldn't.
I didn't get the memo to match.
No memos, but I knew.
I've got some vintage gear.
There you go. You and I proudly representing. So here we go. I got the T-shirt and everything. All right, let's get back to my usual protocols here. Second question, Heather. Why beach volleyball?
I'm impartial, but I think it's the best sport in the world because we get to play outside on the beach, and in the sun, usually by the ocean. I also think that it's a sport that I think challenges you so much in the partnership that you have, and it teaches you how to interact, with the outside world. It's a really intimate partnership that you have, and I've learned so much about relationships from playing beach volleyball, and I'm so grateful for all of the lessons that it's taught me.
Well, we might get into some of those before we're done here today. I think what we're going to do, Heather, as we proceed here today, you can drop these nuggets of wisdom along the way about all the great lessons, because I'm sure that you're totally accurate when you say you learned all these things. As we progress through your career, we might uncover some of these. But the format that we're going to follow, I think, is let's see if we can get together some kind of a blueprint based on your own experience. You'll be the template. Because very, very few athletes have risen to your level in the sport of beach volleyball. You have some authority on this topic of creating the top-level beach volleyball athlete you can possibly create. So I think that's going to be the structure that we'll follow, okay? Well, we'll take it way back, because I know I like to make it as applicable to everybody, including kids who might choose this path. And we'll go all the way up to a 3-time Olympian. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
But let's start from grassroots level, and let's use, again, Heather, we're using you as the template, okay? Tell us, when was your first experience with the sport of volleyball, either beach or otherwise? How old were you? What was the situation?
Yeah, I was exposed to volleyball, I think, like a lot of young kids in school, kind of in gym class, in elementary, primary school. I really found volleyball I would say more at a competitive level when I was in grade 8. So I grew up in Waterdown, like I said, and I played competitive soccer growing up. And all of my teammates, all of my soccer teammates, they were going to go try out for this new club, this new volleyball club that was starting up in Waterdown. So we had somebody who decided to start a volleyball club in Waterdown, and me and all my soccer teammates went to try out. And honestly, that's how I got introduced to the sport. And
And this is
um,
how old you're saying? Sorry.
I was in grade 8, so around 13. Yeah.
So I would say what you just said kind of, I think, supports a hypothesis that I had for a while, Heather. In the world of sports science, they often talk about late entry versus early entry sports. So
Hmm.
grade 8 would be fairly late. So for example, by comparison, my thing is hockey. I'm a hockey guy. I don't think there's any hockey players making the NHL who start at grade 8. You've come to the highest level you can get to in the sport of beach volleyball, but you didn't play the sport, played other sports, but didn't start playing the sport until grade 8. So would you agree it's not an early entry thing? You're not missing the boat if you haven't played this when you're very young.
Yeah, I mean, I think my generation, like I'm 37, and if you would ask any volleyball player now, as you said, they would have all started much earlier. Um, I
That's
think,
interesting.
yeah, I think there's definitely different pathways, and um, like I was always playing sports. I was a competitive dancer. I played soccer really competitively. Every kind of sport in high school I could make the team for. I went out and I tried it. So I am definitely a big believer in some diversity in playing sport, and also just, I mean, there's that big component of burnout, right? In kids, and especially in women, and trying to keep women and girls in sport. There's such a high dropout rate. So I think kids are certainly starting earlier, but I do think there is value in diversifying their interests.
Even in your time, because that's interesting. I guess that's probably true of all sports, Heather. It's getting more and more, how do I say it? More and more competitive, maybe.
Absolutely, yeah. You
More and more
see the
stupid in
like,
one way.
yeah, yeah. It can be intense, and yeah, I think you see that age just getting lower and lower,
And
and
that's happening in
and
volleyball, you'd say.
it's happening in volleyball. I've seen it. I've coached at the club level, and I think it's happening across sports. And you kind of, that sports kind of tend to model one another. And
Yeah.
you have athletes, and it's tough because you have these young kids, and they see all of their peers, starting earlier or doing these camps or being highly specialized, and they feel this peer pressure to do the same.
Mm.
Um,
You know what I call it, Heather? I call it the race to the bottom. If everyone just said, hey, let's put the brakes on here, it might make for a better world. But the thing is, you see your neighbor doing something, and so well, if they're doing this, then I got to do it. And you're racing toward the bottom, but you're caught up
mhm.
in that race of trying to get ahead. And this guy might beat me, or this girl might beat me, then they're going to be ahead. So the race to the bottom, I call it. So I guess I should have expected maybe nothing less, and it permeates a lot of sports these days. So let's talk about you again. Okay, so let's go back to your trajectory, your pathway. You start volleyball at grade 8. This is not beach volleyball yet. That's correct? This is indoor
Yeah,
volleyball.
that's right. Yeah, indoor
So
volleyball.
I do want to hear, Heather, if you can. Let's talk about it as one clump maybe of your high school years playing volleyball, and how
Hmm.
that leads into, then we'll go to, because obviously you got to be good in high school to get to the university level, and we'll go step by step. So now we've reached, let's grade 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Um, just, I guess, in general, tell us what your volleyball career looks like from a broad lens during that period, the high school years.
Yeah, so I was playing on a club volleyball team during high school. I played volleyball for my high school team. So at school, I was also a very competitive soccer player. So I was playing soccer at a club level and
Can I ask which are you
um,
playing more at this point? Is it more
equal.
soccer or more
It was the
volleyball?
same. It was the
Okay.
same, and up until I was sort of actually pursuing um, soccer to see if I could play that in university. I was with a traveling team. We went to the States, and a, a lot, if not all of the girls that I played with went on to play in college, either in the States or in Canada. And so I was playing a year up. So in grade 11, when they all graduated, and I said, I think I want to play volleyball. That's when I decided to just focus on volleyball. So it wasn't until I was in my last year of high school that I became a single sport athlete, I guess you could say,
Sure.
outside of high school athletics. So
Oh, for most of that period, you're a two sport athlete, in fact.
yes, yeah, yeah,
And my question would be, you said grade 11 going into grade 12. You say I'm going to focus now.
yeah.
Is that right?
That's
I'm
right. I
curious as
think
to
I
so
just
so tell us more about why that is. What made you say volleyball is the one I'm going to focus on? By that, I guess what I'm getting at, Heather, by that point, because you said probably even before this, you and other girls, you've got it in the back of your mind, the next level being collegiate sport.
hmm
Um, so what made the decision in grade 11 to say I'm going to focus on volleyball?
yeah. I think realistically it was because I was playing soccer with a team that was a year above me. So that team graduated, and at that point I just realized that I was tired of like I didn't want to play soccer into collegiate sport, and I didn't then have a team. I wasn't motivated to go find another team to keep playing for my last year, and I said, I love volleyball. I'm gonna focus on volleyball. And up until that point I had been a competitive dual sport athlete, so I just I really didn't have a lot of time, and it was just that it was wearing on me. And then I'll add in, like, I played everything I could in high school too. I played basketball, I played flag football, I did track and field. Yeah, so I loved all sports, but I kind of realized that, oh, I think I can play volleyball in university. And so yeah, that was my decision.
And and probably Heather, all those other sports you played, they all go into the recipe maybe of making and let's go even one step further, an Olympic level beach volleyball player. All those things you played throughout your whole life, they all contribute, I think, in little ways. Would you say?
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, even just for me as an athlete, like, I'm specialized in beach volleyball now, but I love playing little games at the like warm up games, that are like just different sports and kind of challenging your body in different ways. I think as athletes, we're so used to working and fine tuning on the small details in our sport, but sometimes just to, like, challenge yourself in different ways for the even just to for the engagement, the like working your mind, like having fun, all those things.
Wonderful advice, I think. So let's start talking about your grade 12 year. Okay. So now you're focusing on volleyball. Heather, talk to us about the process. Maybe there's grade 12 volleyball players listening to this. And the idea of now I'm in my grade 12 year, the next level is the collegiate level. Talk to us about the process of figuring out where you're going to go play volleyball after that.
Yeah. I'll talk about my experience, but it has drastically
Absolutely.
changed for athletes
Okay.
looking to play at that level now. So when I was playing, it was, mostly kind of having the scouts come, university, college level scouts come and watch you at your club volleyball tournaments, and talking to them, and also reaching out to them via email. Um, and
You reach out to them?
so, yeah,
Like
both.
you're
Like,
marketing yourself kind of?
yes, if they haven't approached you, and I think it's quite similar now, except that athletes are using the video service and creating highlight videos and having to, a lot of them will like upload to a platform kind of thing. And this is, sometimes athletes are being recruited as early as grade 10 and 11. So most athletes would have chosen their school by grade 11 if they're at least like going for a scholarship. Or not. But so yeah, I would say it's changed a lot since I was an athlete in like going into university. But
Which
yeah,
is not that
I
long ago, by the way, folks. It's not that ancient history, but it changes rapidly, I guess you're saying, Heather.
thank you, thank you. Geez, I think this was like almost, well, it was 20 years ago, so it was a while
Yeah.
ago. Um, it doesn't feel that long ago, but for me, I knew that I wanted to be a student first, so I was looking at programs and universities that I was interested in, and but also, like volleyball, I was definitely really interested in volleyball, but at the time, I didn't even fathom that I would be playing professionally afterwards. So I wanted to make sure that for me that it was
Really,
a
eh?
school. Oh yeah, yeah.
Now at this point, the idea of pro is not a realistic thought yet.
No, no, I didn't even think that I would, like be playing to starting my first year. So this is for me the decision was I really wanted to make sure that it was a program and a school that was a good fit for me as a student.
Okay. So you make the decision, and now we're going to clump together the collegiate years.
Hmm.
And now I deliberately saved this until now because we're going to have to describe. I want to get you to describe, Heather, in case there's some volleyball novices out there, okay? On a very purely fundamental level, I'm going to get you to describe what a volleyball game is, okay? With an eye to um, the time, how it's structured, and I'll throw in some of the stuff about the physiology maybe as you go. But let's talk about a standard collegiate volleyball game. You tell us, Heather, in the very most fundamental way, what is this game? You have how many on each side? How long are you playing? The objective is to get so many points. Go on a very, very, very fundamental level.
Okay, so indoor volleyball, you've got six athletes on the court, so it's a 6-on-6, and you have at most three contacts to get the ball over the net. And you're trying to score by either putting the ball into the opponent's court, having it land, or having them be unable to return the ball back after they've touched it. And so it is indoor volleyball. You play best out of five. It's 3 out of 5 and sets, and each set is to the first 4 sets are to 25, and the if you have to go to a fifth set, it is to 15, and you have to win each set by 2 with no cap. So you have to make sure you win the set by 2. And so typically a game can last, if it's a quick game, it can last just over an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And if it's a long game, it can be up to 2 hours, depending if
Because
played that 3 sets or 5 sets.
because it's not timed in the way like a hockey game or a basketball game is a certain amount of time. It's a certain number of points.
That's right. Yeah. So there's no time limit or minimum.
But
Yeah.
in general, you said like an hour, maybe up to two, maybe in a long game. Is that a fair?
Yeah, probably about an hour 15 on the shorter end, and up to 2 hours. Yeah.
Now here's the next question, Heather. Are all six athletes on the court for the whole game, or is there substitutions?
Yeah. So you have substitutions. I think it is. I'm trying to There's international rules and collegiate rules, but you're allowed. And
For
I can't
sure,
remember what
that
they
would
are,
differ.
but you're only allowed a certain number of substitutions, and then you can have one back row player. So it's usually the person that's in a different colored shirt called the libero, and they can substitute in and off the court on the fly, so you don't have to signal to the ref. It doesn't count towards so you reward your number of substitutions. And so that's usually your defensive player, your passing specialist. So they typically sub in for your middle player, who's sort of be like your tallest, and so they go in for that reason. Other than that, yeah, you have athletes who are on the court the whole time. Sometimes you have athletes that only go in for a couple points. It can be very specialized in indoor volleyball. So what I mean by that is very position specific. Your role is very specialized to your position on the court.
Strategically.
Yeah.
And so that's a great setup, Heather. And the reason why I ask is just so we have now in the back of our brain, we're always thinking about the physiology at work. And if you're a high-level volleyball player, I'm going to make a wild assumption here because it's the same in all sports. Your best players, you're going to be on the playing more. So a top-level volleyball athlete, you're talking about being on the court, competing for an hour, maybe more. And I thought I'd just throw it out there, the structure of the sport, so we can later understand some of the physiology at work. You talk about the three
Mm-hmm.
touches, and I think probably
Mm-hmm.
even a volleyball novice would have the visual of that third touch occasionally, not always, of course, but being the explosive jumping spike, because
Yeah.
the object of the game is to get the ball on their side without having it returned.
Yeah.
So we just described a volleyball game. Now I want you to talk about your time, your collegiate career. Let's talk about where you wound up and just talk about how that came to be, where you played your volleyball collegiately.
Yeah, so as we talked earlier, I ended up going to University of Toronto, and it was, I'll be honest, it wasn't at the top of my list. It was sort of, I didn't kind of realize until like later when I was my last year of high school. I was playing on the provincial team at the time, and some of the other athletes were going to U of T. I was playing club volleyball. Actually, my coach at club volleyball was Christine Drakeage, so she's the intercollegiate coach at U of T, but she was my coach
She's a
in grade
legend.
12. She certainly is, yeah.
She's a legend,
and
Heather. A U of
and
T legend.
she
How many
is, and we
years? She's
will
been there,
like.
I think, 30 something years. Do you know how many years exactly? It's 30, over 30 years, I think.
Yeah, she was there when she was still playing and her dad was coaching. She was assistant coaching. So yeah, I think she was in her early 20s when she started. I can't remember the number of years exactly, but
It's a lot.
um, yeah, she was a big force in my career, and I can chat about her lots more later. But yeah, I think I hadn't put U of T on my radar. I'm not really sure why. I think I wasn't sure about the school coming from a smaller town from Waterdown. I wasn't sure if I could get into the program. I didn't know too much about the volleyball program, but once I met Christine and once I was playing club volleyball with a number of other girls who were going to U of T, and once I looked more into the university, I just I thought it would be a really good fit. I think advice to any athletes like looking at different schools or even just students is like go and have a look at the campus, like talk to the coach, go on that recruiting trip, and you really don't know if a school is going to be the right fit. At least like I didn't know until I went and got to visit different schools and see what life is like on that campus. So yeah, once I had that tour of U of T, and I got to meet some of the alumni, and now a lot of universities, when you're on your recruiting trip, you can kind of join practice or witness practice and watch practice, and I think those are like all
Cool.
really great opportunities for athletes to help them make their
Absolutely.
choice. Hmm.
So I want to unpack some more of this lifestyle, we'll call it. I met once. It is a big change of lifestyle, obviously, once anyone starts university. But first, before we get there, let's start talking about just the structure of the season, of a volleyball season. Okay? How many games are we talking about? You play one every how many days? Weekends?
Oh,
How
you're
does it?
asking me to uh, like
Give or
reach
take.
into
We
my
don't need to be
memory bank,
specific. Yeah.
but gosh,
Would it be two in a
we
day?
played.
Would it be?
We would play 2 matches a week. So usually Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. Kind of our season starts in like end of October, early November, and then we would go all the way until like March. You have your practices on top of that. So you have at least 2 games a week, and then you're practicing,
And how many practices?
um, yeah, like 4 or 5 depending. So you might have one day off in the week depending on your game schedule. I know right now they have all the games are played on Friday, Saturday. So athletes will practice Monday to Thursday, play Friday, Saturday, usually have Sunday off. And then so practice usually in evenings, and sometimes they have some skill sessions. So certainly it's sort of like the program has developed since I've been there. But yeah, that's sort of what the typical work the week looks like. And then I know that we'd try and fit in some strength and conditioning where we can.
You're reading my
Um,
thoughts.
yeah.
That was my next question. So what I was going to say, Heather, was when you say practice, you mean because volleyball would be fairly high sport specific skill sport. So when you say
hmm
practice, you're practicing literally the techniques of volleyball, strategy probably. You mentioned strength and conditioning. At this point in your life, in your career, if, and you said yes, the answer is yes, strength and conditioning became a component of your development as a volleyball player. So just talk, as you were just starting to do there, Heather, about the whole phenomenon of strength and conditioning for volleyball.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of touched on, I guess, the physical demands of what volleyball, just in terms of like like the daily practices and what a game looks like. You can be with a warm up with the game, you can, you'll be on the court for almost 3 hours. So, those are pretty high demands on your body. And so you want to make sure that you're healthy and that you can last the whole season. And so it's always that like fine balance of trying to squeeze in some strength and conditioning without like overtraining, right? We obviously would have strength and conditioning coaches that we would work with that work closely with the coaches, trying to fit them in throughout the year so that at least you're maintaining your strength and you're not losing your strength as the season goes on. But for me, I would say, yeah, I was sort of a late bloomer to strength and conditioning. We talked earlier about how um, like the ages of athletes are starting earlier in sport. And I think strength and conditioning is also starting earlier in sport, which is great to see, just to kind of teach athletes some of that physical literacy.
You said you were a late bloomer. You're going to say how you started. I was just going to throw out, Heather, just for the sake of interest and argument. There might be a female component of that as well. I think less girls were lifting weights, I think, Heather, back 20 years ago than there are today. I was going to
hmm
say, in your peer group, were there girls back in that 20-year ago time span that were lifting weights?
So, I mean, at the time, my peer group was all of my teammates. And so, speaking generally, we were introduced to strength and conditioning through sport. So, for some people that may have been at university, some people that may have been through being on a provincial team or a regional team. And that's how I was introduced to it. And so I, like I said, was introduced kind of my first year of university, but with the kind of hectic schedule of the season, I wasn't able to really commit um, time to strength and conditioning until my first summer of university.
First
And
summer
that's when
university.
I really, was able to work out consistently, 3 or 4 days a week. Yeah, I would say that was the kind of the time in my life when I kind of really found it. And we had a strength and conditioning coach through the university that gave us a program, and I think I went and worked out with him one day a week, and the other days were on my own, kind of thing. So there was definitely a lot of support there through the university.
Let's talk about my other favorite area, nutrition. So, again, around this time, generally speaking, and you can give us your personal take, when did the notion that, what I put into this body as I'm trying to make it the best athlete I can possibly be, When did that become a thing for you, Heather? And then, as a second question on the topic, maybe you can just tell us very broadly, very generally, if someone was to ask you, what are the nutritional issues or the major nutritional issue? And something that comes to mind about nutrition and volleyball. So I gave you
Hmm.
two questions to go over there. When did nutrition become a thing for your performance? And what comes to mind with nutrition for volleyball?
Um, I think I'm going to answer your question maybe a little bit differently, but I think nutrition comes into play at any stage. I think it is so important. And like looking back at how I was eating in high school and in even early university, it's a little bit appalling maybe, but I was just oblivious or didn't really know. Um, and it's, like trying to navigate that world. Um, is was a learning curve, I would say. So again, we had dietitians that we worked with through our university program, and then it's also such, as you said, it's a big life change. You're moving away from home. Thankfully I had a meal plan my first year, but then that second year living on your own and having to cook for yourself. So some big changes over the course of a few years. And I would say I probably didn't really start to, um, I guess, maybe figure out my diet until maybe my third or fourth year at university, and that just kind of comes also with trial and error and figuring out what my body needs and what I like and what I like to cook or kind of thing, and also just getting a lot of that sound nutritional advice. It wasn't something that kind of came naturally or right away, but when I was, yeah, like I said, like third, fourth year university, I really took an interest to it, and I just spent some of my personal time doing some more research, learning how to cook, trying new recipes, doing lots of food prep, and
I knew you
really
did all
making it
that, by
a
the way, Heather.
priority.
That's
Yeah,
one
but it's
that's one of the reasons why you're here, by the way.
yeah. Yeah, so it's yeah, I'd say like with any part of sport, whether that's, the physical, the mental, the diet, I think there's a learning curve there. And so it's definitely important, but it's not gonna all kind of like click right away.
For sure. Okay, let's jump forward in time. Heather, I'm going to take you back to the year. You ready? We're going to get in a time machine. We're heading back to the year 2012. This is the first time that you almost make the Olympics. And it's not in the sport of indoor volleyball. Now it's beach volleyball. Um, I guess we'll go back in time, just prior to 2012. You got to tell us, when does beach volleyball become part of the equation, so that by the year 2012, when that rolls around, you're thinking that you might actually make the Olympics in that sport. Talk about like when and why this happened.
Yeah. So, like I said, Christine Drakage was a big driving force in my career, and she herself was a former beach volleyball athlete. And so I had tried beach volleyball a little bit in high school, kind of playing some tournaments for fun.
Just
And
for
then when
fun.
I went, yeah, um, and when I was in university, Christine she really encouraged our whole team, everybody, to play beach volleyball in the off season. So the Ontario Volleyball Association, they would run tournaments in Toronto at Ashbridges Bay pretty regularly, almost every weekend. And so she said, And then there was also sort of this the group of current and alumni players who would train on the beach a couple days a week. And so she just really encouraged us to go and play. And sometimes she would run those sessions for us. And then she would also, like, the university would cover our entrance fees for the tournaments in the summer on the weekends. So it was as a way to offer a little bit of off-season training for the athletes, but in a different environment. So my first summer of university, after my first year of university, I stayed. I was working in Toronto, and then I was able, like I said, I committed to a strength and conditioning program, and then I was playing beach volleyball in the evenings as well. And so that was sort of the first time that I was like really able to, I don't know, be exposed to it and play it a lot more.
But even at this point, you're viewing it as a supplement to your indoor career. Like
Yeah,
you're not thinking I'm
that's
going to be in
right.
the Olympics, and you're not thinking I'm going to be in the Olympics in 2012. You're thinking it's going to supplement my career.
That's right. Yeah. So so I would just continue playing in the summers. So I'd play indoor when I was at university, and then beach during the summers. And it was probably it was 2007. I had the opportunity to go play my first international um, game, and
Sorry,
a
this is in
tournament
beach.
rather in
This is in
beach. Yeah.
beach.
So yes. So in the summer in 2007, uh, me and another teammate from university went, and we played. I got to play two tournaments in Spain and in Germany, and so I got a little bit of a feel for that international environment.
Cool.
And then in 2008, me and another teammate from university, we were tried out for the under 19 World Championships in beach volleyball, and so
So that's a
yeah,
pretty high
just
level, Heather. Now you're now I guess you're
yeah.
thinking maybe I might do something here.
Yeah, it was I totally fell in love with the sport, with being on the beach. I kind of mentioned earlier how specific the indoor volleyball can be, and what I loved about beach was that, like, you had to be good at everything,
Hmm.
and you had to be able to execute every single skill. And I also knew, like, I'm 5'7.5", and I was definitely undersized for an indoor volleyball player. And I knew that I didn't have a career playing indoor at a very high level because of my height. But I loved beach,
Really,
and I
eh?
saw, yeah,
It was that
hmm
limiting. And by the way, folks, 5'7" is another one of my favorite topics, Heather, that you're hitting on here. 5'7" is not short for an adult human female on average, but you're saying that is a limiting factor. Not that you could never do it, but it certainly limits you to play the highest level of indoor volleyball. Is that what you're saying, Heather?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even now I still am undersized for beach. I think you see it across all sports. Like, athletes are getting taller, they're getting faster, they're getting
Bigger,
stronger.
faster, stronger.
Um, exactly, and beach volleyball is no exception. But I knew that if I wanted to continue on with beach volleyball or with volleyball, it was going to be on the beach, and I knew that I just possessed the skills that would be, that could make me really successful on the beach, even being undersized.
I want to piggyback on something you said there. I was looking for a way to give my 2 cents. For what it's worth, Heather, I couldn't agree more in terms of a entertainment point of view. There's no comparison to me with beach volleyball versus indoor volleyball, and beach is way more entertaining for a variety of reasons. One of them is the one you mentioned, just simply the sand. It's a lovely visual, Heather. Never mind the fact we're going to talk about the Olympics soon, but I mean, you folks were playing for goodness sake in Paris. That was unbelievable with the Eiffel Tower in the background. But just simply the visuals of the sand, and even more than that, because I have to get you to do this now. We described the structure of an indoor volleyball game that is different than a beach volleyball game. I'm just going to humbly say before you give us the details, it makes for a way more entertaining product, I think, because the word I would use, Heather, it's scramblier. It's scramblier the diving around, the getting back up after you dive, the sand flying around. Um, that to me is way, way more entertaining for me personally. So that being said,
Hmm.
the I'll put it to you again, nuts and bolts here, Heather. Very, very rudimentary analysis. The main differences in the structure of the beach volleyball game versus the indoor game would be
Yes, you have two players now on the court. So obviously, there's the
just the two of you.
sand, like, but it's 2 on 2. So the court is a little bit smaller. An indoor court is 9 meters by 9 meters, and a beach volleyball court is 8 meters by 8 meters. But you have two people, no substitutions, 2 on 2, and the scoring is a little bit different. So you play best of three sets. The first two sets are to 21. Again, you have to win by two. And the third set is to 15. Again, winning by two. So the matches are a little bit shorter. They can be anywhere from around like 35 minutes up to like an hour. An hour would be a pretty long match.
A little bit shorter in time. I'm sure someone studied this, Heather. It is not me. I don't know what the answer is. I'm just going to speculate, though. If you were to put, oh, what do you call it? One of the activity trackers on an athlete in beach volleyball versus the indoor volleyball, you might know maybe better than me. It would seem to me to be uh, rather obvious that they're doing more, I think, the athletes in beach volleyball. More running, more jumping, more diving, more getting back up. Would that be fair to say? Although it's a shorter period of time.
You're involved in every single play, because you have to be. Again, the rules are the same, so you're allowed three contacts. Um, but you can have the contacts have to alternate, and so yeah, every athlete is involved in every play, and there can be, um, like you said, some really kind of gnarly rallies, some really long rallies, which
Entertaining rallies.
absolutely. I mean, I think so. You think so.
Oh,
Um, but it is a very entertaining sport, and especially on the women's side, because you do get to those like very long rallies. So um,
yeah.
yeah, and then you're moving in the sand and having to do all of the same things, but you're in the sand, and obviously playing without shoes and knee pads and whatnot.
Last question before we get into your Olympic experiences. We haven't even got to the Olympics yet, Heather. But your descriptions brought one more question to my mind there. Again, because I guess our main theme here is developing the highest level beach volleyball athlete you could possibly develop. I wonder if you were to make a guess. Look, let's say all the athletes that were in beach volleyball in Paris. Okay, what percentage of them come from indoor volleyball? Or put another way, because I get a sense of the answer. So I'll put it another way. Is there anybody who has only done beach volleyball? Again, going back to where we started the interview, kids
Hmm.
developing. Is there anybody who said, I'm a beach volleyball player, and that's what I play when I'm 8 years old, and I focus on beach volleyball, and now I'm at the Olympics?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think that it's generational, I will say, and it's also based off of, I think it's country by country as well. Overall, I would say the athletes, all volleyball athletes, kind of start playing indoor volleyball. But what has really been a game changer in the sport is that the NCAA in the States now has sand volleyball. And so they offer sand volleyball, beach volleyball as a collegiate sport. And they're really the only country in the world to do so, but you see the development of, and only on the women's side, um, but you see the development of their women's program because these athletes then really only play beach volleyball, and we have a whole cohort in Canada even of athletes who go and play in the States and for their college career, but all of them would have to start somewhere, and they start indoor volleyball. And if you look at different countries again, across the world, like maybe somewhere like China, where they have, they're able to kind of like hand select people across the country and bring them in. And they would maybe start playing beach volleyball at a very young age. But then if you look at some of the more traditional sporting countries, like I would say Germany or Australia, or even somewhere where beach volleyball is really big, like Brazil, a lot of those athletes, again, would start with indoor, but then able to transition to beach. So I would say athletes are starting on the beach earlier and earlier, but it's also just depending on what country you are
Where in
from
the world you are.
and weather. Yep, and weather too, right?
Okay. Let's go back to 2012. Okay.
Yes.
And by the way, Heather, part of what we do here, we try to give life lessons, by the way. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's not all roses and peaches and buttercups and whatever else. I'm going to ask you about 2012, trying out for the Olympics and failing.
hmm
So this is your first crack at the can. You could have been, Heather. You could have been a four-time Olympian. But 2012 doesn't go your way. Okay? So because people like to hear about how everyone fails at some point, you had some adversity, you gave it a try, didn't make it. Why don't you just talk about that whole process of not fulfilling the ultimate goal of making the Olympics, what that did to you, how you regrouped the whole mind frame, Heather, which is important for beach volleyball, which is important for sports, which is important for life in general, and that is dealing with failure.
hmm Yeah, I'll first just sort of like backtrack a little bit, because I want to like kind of um, touch on a point in my university career. So I first made the national team, our beach national team, in 2008. So I was still in university. I graduated in 2010. So I made our beach national team in 2008, and I was really fortunate because I had Christine as our coach, and she knew that I was wanting to play on the national team, and so she really supported me and helped push me to go and try out. And in 2009, I remember after my first year on the national team, it was sort of the summer heading into my final year of university, and I sat down with her and said, "Hey, like I think that beach volleyball, like this is going to be my future. I think that I can see myself pursuing this professionally, and maybe I need to step away from university to pursue this, and not and come. I can always come back to university." And I still vividly remember sitting in her office, and she said, "Okay, like let's plan out your career." And so it was
What a good coach, man. That's what mentors do, Heather.
absolutely, and she, I mean, I can praise Christina Drakeage all day, but we had, it was 2009, and she said, "Okay, you have one more year of university, but if you don't come to university, like you're gonna play beach volleyball and then try to qualify for the Olympics in 2012, and kind of said, okay, and there's quads, and so you might not come back to university until." Like 2012, 2013. And then even then, if you continue on, you could go to 2016, and just kind of showed me like if I keep delaying my my university degree, like how much harder it's going to be to come back. And so she really highlighted that for me. And then also was just able to have a conversation with me and say, how can we make this work? So we kind of had an agreement in my final year of university that I was training on the beach 2 days a week, and then and missing practice with our indoor collegiate team, and then coming to U of T and practicing with the team and playing in the games and whatnot. And so and then kind of come January and getting closer to playoffs, when I was then able to be with U of T 100% of the time for the next 3 months until our season was over. So I really benefited from having a great relationship with my coach, and also somebody that, like you said, was a mentor and wanted success for me as athlete, but also as a student. And
And as a human
you
being.
know, Yeah, and I'm 37 now, fast forward, like 15 years, and I may not have been have may not have had the opportunity to go back to university until now. So um, I'm I'm so grateful that I had that conversation and that I had somebody who was
It's a
looking out
great
for me.
story.
Um, yes, so then fast forward to 2012. So I graduated in 2010. I decided to pursue beach volleyball full time at that point, and it was 2000. So summer of 2010 was really like my first summer on tour. We played a couple events, me and my teammate Liz, and then she was a few years older than me, had a little bit more experience. In 2011, we were playing more and doing well, and I think it was sort of during that time when he said, "Hey, like I think we could make a run for the Olympics," and so. Um, and so we did, and we, at the time, I think we got up to our highest ranking in for the Olympic rankings was 18, and the cutoff was 16, and then so we didn't make the like initial cutoff. Um, there's two sort of ways to qualify for the Olympics, so we didn't make the top 16 cutoff, but we were able to do a continental tour qualifier. So we qualified for that in 2012. We helped Canada win the berth for the Olympics at our continental tour. So it's Davis Cup style at that time. So they sent two teams for Canada, and we had to play against all the other continental teams in our continental group. And so we won the berth for that, but because there was two teams for Canada, our federation said, okay, we're going to make the both teams play against each other. So at the time, in 2012, we had been, the more successful team. Um, but so we had to have this one match. Winner goes to the Olympics, kind of like bloodbath, and
Hell of a
so
story, Heather.
yeah, and I mean, like, there's no spoiler here. We lost. My teammate and I, we won. So it was best out of
How
three,
pissed
like we
were
said.
you?
Um, I think at the time I was more heartbroken. I was sad. Um, I was really sad. We had done. I would say like we had won that game. We had won our first set. We were doing so well. We had all of this momentum. We were in the second set and we were up, and then like it was just this total momentum shift. And I think we just um we just kind of fell out
That's
of the
sports, though,
zone.
Heather.
It is sports. It's sports. It's life. Um, and yeah, and so we lost in three, and um, I was upset and mad. I think the other team. It was so interesting because the other team that we lost to, um, Marie Andre and Annie Martin. They were these women that I looked up to in the sport. They were in their early 30s at the time. I was, like early 20s. These were the legends of beach volleyball. So they were people that I admired. But it was also, I respected them, but I was also so hurt and heartbroken. And yeah, it was
But not defeated. Not
no,
not not
and
quitting. Because we go
no.
forward 4 years. I guess what I'm going to
Hmm.
ask. So, first of all, that's a great story. It's a great story. You said at the beginning about life lessons and that you learn in something like beach volleyball. People say, "Can you really learn?" My goodness, of course you can learn things about life and adversity, and in beach volleyball or any sport. And that was a hell of a loss. Um,
Yeah, I think pursuing anything that is meaningful to you and pouring your heart and your
that
resources
that's the
and your
worst, Heather.
energy.
When you really, like I
It's the
really
worst, but it's
tried
the
here.
best.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But it's the worst in the
Um,
sense of what I'm saying. Like when if you don't give it your all, you can always have the excuse. Well, I didn't really care, or I didn't really try. But when you know, I gave of my soul. This is my best effort, and on this day, two girls were better than me. That's hard to deal with. It's hard to deal with.
mhm.
So how did you deal with that? We go forward 4 years, and now lo and behold, you're at Rio. My question, I guess, Heather, what did you do in those 4 years to to turn yourself into an Olympic athlete? And your answer, I'm asking in an open-ended kind of way. It could be training, it could be mental approach, it could be nutrition, whatever the case may be. What did you do in those 4 years to turn yourself into an Olympic athlete in 2016?
A number of things. So I think the first thing was in early 2013. I had a woman reach out to me, Sarah Pavin, and she was a very successful indoor player with our indoor national team in Canada, and had never played beach before, but reached out to me. And after having failed to make the Olympics in indoor, had said, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this beach thing. Like, I know you play. What like can you kind of help me navigate, or do you have any recommendations, or like kind of any partners that you think I could play with?" And
How about me?
yeah, so I was like, well, after having some kind of back and forth, kind of asking like, well, what are your goals in this sport? Like, is this, are you actually interested in doing this and full time and going to the Olympics, or what's like, where's your interest level? And so, kind of realizing that this was something she wanted to pursue, and I said, hey, like, why don't we team up? I think like beach volleyball, you have these really like close partnerships because it's a team of two. It's a bigger team. You
Just
have your
two.
support staff, but it's a team of two. So it was um, in some ways it was a really easy decision because I respected her, Sarah, as a player, but hard to also be leaving my former teammate as well. um, but yeah, so that was a big change. And so early 2013 we kind of said, like, looked around at the other successful teams on tour and kind of said, okay, what are all the best teams in the world doing right now? Like, okay, they have a personal coach. So we said, okay, we've got to hire a personal coach and work with them, because at the time we had some coaching through the national team, but it was very generalized. We said, okay, strength and conditioning. We really need to, like to work on that. People are using data science and data analysis, and video. And so we kind of just like looked at kind of what everyone else was doing and said, okay, we got to do that. um, and yeah, and I
Interesting.
think, and so that was, I would say, like, really the biggest factor was like having a new teammate, and then hiring a new coach, and sort of like investing in myself as an athlete. And then at that time, so I moved to California, where I worked with our coach um, full time, and then also my teammate Sarah, she was a professional indoor player, and so she was making her money playing indoor. So kind of during the winter, like September until April, kind of depending on her contract. So we kind of had a shortened season. I was only able to play with her kind of during those summers, and then during the off season, I would train on my own, either at home in Toronto, or I'd go to California and train with our coach there. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so clearly it makes perfect sense. It's a team sport. So whatever term you want to use, team chemistry would be relevant to success. Let's put that aside for 1 second. And the thought that came to me, to compare yourself, okay, Heather Bansley, 2012 version versus 2016 version, are you a better beach volleyball player? in terms of skill, tactics, strategy, and or are you a better physical specimen than you were in 2012 to compare to yourself in 2016? Did those things improve or change, or is it all just
Absolutely.
because you're
Immensely.
you, you did you did it wasn't
I would
just the
say
team
immensely.
chemistry
Yeah.
immensely.
Um, Yeah, I think a few things kind of happened there. Like you said chemistry, but I also think, when you are playing with a better partner, when you're playing with somebody on the court, they then make you better. And then
You're
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 also,
speaking my language, man.
yeah. And then, you're practicing at a higher level. Because you're playing at a higher level teams want to practice with you.
Yeah,
You're going further into
that's
tournaments. You're being,
that's so
um,
important,
you,
Heather. That applies even to sports that have no strategy or have less strategy. Never mind to talk about ice hockey or beach volleyball when, as you
mhm,
put it, playing with and against better people brings you up. In
mhm,
running, for goodness sake, if I'm going to go out and be a distance runner, I'm better off running with really good runners. And you think, well, it's
mhm,
just an individual thing. I just got to run. No, 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 no. You surround yourself with, the way I like to phrase it, people that are better than you.
mhm,
That's a winning formula, I think, Heather.
mhm.
Not
Yeah,
to say
so
Sarah
I
was better than
mean,
you, but
yeah. No, but I mean, like, it was, like, I had more experience on the beach, but she had so much experience playing high level indoor volleyball. So I think we really, complemented each other that way. And then, like you said, it's, surrounding ourselves with a better coach, a better strength and conditioning coach, you know, all of those things. And then, so yeah, I would say we really kind of invested in ourselves in those aspects. And then, being at the time being in California, we were one of the first Canadian teams to do that because um, California was sort of the training base for all the American players, and they just had a bigger roster, so a bigger number of athletes that we could train against daily, and then also train outside daily. So another important part of our sport, and just being exposed to all of the elements. I think it was definitely a combination of like me getting better, but then also having the full 4 years of a quad to really invest in our partnership and get to know one another. We would train together during the summers, and then Sarah would play indoor volleyball because she was had a quite lucrative career playing indoor at the time and didn't want to give that up. And so we kind of made it work. And so I had to train on my own for a good part of the year, and that was really, really difficult. I mean, being in a team sport, but I will say it kind of made me tough, in 2016, so we were the year of the Olympics. We were at a qualifying event in Brazil, in Rio, and it was in the middle of a match, and this was in March, and we in the middle of the match we collided, and so ran into each other, and then Sarah ended up breaking her toe during the collision, and so this was March, a few months before the Olympics. She broke her toe, and
I did
then
not know
she
this
was
story.
yeah, yeah. So, she was really upset. She had to be out for it was about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks. And then, so at that time, I had to train by myself. Um, and so again, it was just like kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, like I've been here before. I've had to train without her, um, kind of thing. And then even when she was healthy and she came back, you talked about those partnership dynamics, and she said, I think, um, our partnership was a little bit rocky, and then at that point she said, okay, I don't want to even practice with you. I'm coming back, but I don't want to practice with you, and so like we're gonna go to events, and we'll play together, and we can practice at events, but not at home. So um, it was like there we are, a
Sorry,
couple of
I
months
think
out from the
I
Olympics.
think I missed some of that. Why was that? Because you broke her toe? Like, what was the reason for that?
Yeah, she was just upset that she blamed me that I broke her toe, and that
Jesus,
she was
Mary,
just
I
really
didn't know this
upset by
story.
it. And yeah, and I think that people have different I don't know, responses
Yeah.
to fear, and to anxiety, and to stress, and I mean, I won't say that our partnership was great, but that was sort of like the tipping point for her, and that was how she wanted to approach the injury. And so, we it was months up until July. We weren't practicing together. We would go to tournaments and we would practice, but when we were in California, we wouldn't. And then, it was only about a month prior to the Olympics that she agreed to practice together again. And so I just kind of share this
That's a hell
story
of a story,
because
Heather.
I it is a hell of a story, and I think that, like you said, there's just like you gotta. I think there's so many lessons that you learn, and I talk about partnerships because it's just like literally anything can happen. And for me, it was like I wanted to go to the Olympics so bad. We were, I think, ranked like fourth, or we were either fourth or sixth, top six in the world in the Olympic ranking. So we were in a really good spot. We were qualifying for the Olympics, so it was still my goal. I still wanted to go and perform and win and do my best. And, I was committed to that. And it's just like when you have this goal, you do anything you can to get there. And I think it taught me to be resilient in so many different ways, but also like I was like, oh, you know what? Like I can dwell on the fact that my partner doesn't want to practice with me, or also I can, you know, realize that hey, I've been in this spot before because we weren't able to practice when she was away competing. Um, and so yeah, I mean,
What did you say at the
I
beginning?
so many
Life lessons.
people life lessons, and I just also I think so many people don't know a lot of what happens behind the scenes in Olympic sports, and like you're presented on the world stage, but there's just like so many, so much. It takes so much to get there. Yeah, not just physically.
Clearly. So that's a tremendous story. I did not know any of that story. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go forward 4 years. Sarah's not your partner anymore. Now we have Brandy.
Hmm.
So in this, now we're in the 2020 Olympics, or 2021, I guess. Um, Talk about getting ready for that set of Olympic Games.
Yeah. I mean, I think all athletes probably have some like crazy COVID stories. I remember it was March, and we had just started our preseason training camp, so we decided to go down to Brazil. And so we were already in Brazil for a couple weeks. We were getting ready to head to a tournament in Mexico, and that's kind of when all the shutdowns started to happen. So we were in a panic in Brazil, trying to get home, so having to get home, and also like, well, personally, I had just gotten out of like at the time I had me and my partner of 7 years had just broken up, and we're trying to navigate like a one-bedroom condo in Toronto. So I ended up
Heather,
moving to my
we're hearing all the dirty laundries being aired here today.
oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
fantastic. It's fantastic. So that's a pretty
So
crappy
I
time, is the summary
oh
for Heather
yeah.
Bansley at this point in time. But
Yeah, so
listen,
I
this is
I
all
went
part of the story. People see you, oh, I'm a three-time Olympian. I have this, I have that. I'm so successful. Everyone deals with crap.
totally.
It's
So
reassuring to know, Heather, you're dealing with this crap.
Everybody is, right? Everybody is going through something, especially at that time. So I was really fortunate. I had my family cottage um to like escape to, and but it was definitely a very confusing time. The Olympics were maybe going to get canceled. We didn't know if they would be totally canceled or if they would be postponed. We're kind of hearing all different things. So it was definitely a bit of a roller coaster. And then, it's trying to, trying to stay healthy, but then also trying to stay in shape. And we found out that the Olympics were postponed. For first we found out they were canceled, and then we were found out they were postponed, and so till the next year, which it was a relief after thinking that you've been trying to qualify for the Olympics for the past 4 years, and they were canceled. But yeah, I was at my cottage. I was really fortunate that our national federation, so Volleyball Canada, kind of lent out a bunch of equipment. I was able to like buy a couple things, borrow a few things, kind of piecemeal a gym together at my cottage where I was living. I worked out in the garage every day for about 7 months, and my brother was living there at the time with me, with our dads, and he called it fantasy camp because he would come and work out with me every day. I don't know. I look at back at that time as like a really nice bonding experience. That was a takeaway for me. Like it was for me and my brother to get closer, and also to have him help motivate me and help get me to the gym every day, because it was just like it was a tough time for everybody, and not
For
everybody
sure.
was motivated. So I'm really grateful for that experience and to have him there. So yeah, we were working out in the gym. And it was not heated, so definitely the winter
Oh
was very
my
chilly.
goodness.
And then we weren't allowed to return to our training center um, until I think August, and even then it was like all these like weird return to play kind of policies
Oh,
where
I
like
remember.
the athletes could be on the court, but our coach had to be off of the court, and there could only be a certain
So bizarre,
number. And
Heather.
um, yeah, it was super weird. Everyone was just trying to like do the best they could, and navigate with under certain like the restrictions. And so we finally, my teammate Brandy and I, kind of decided, okay, we're going to go to Brazil to start training where we can train outside and whatnot. And it was a scary decision because we had to kind of weigh, like weigh being in Brazil with the pros and cons of, like, okay, we can train and we can train outside and we can have our coach there and we can have other people practicing with us, but it also then like up against the risk of COVID and being in a country where a lot of the restrictions weren't as strict. And so we went to Brazil in September of 2020, and I was there aside from coming home for a month in December. Um, where I had to then like isolate for 2 weeks. But yeah, we were in Brazil from September, home for a month in December, and then up until the Olympics, I wasn't able to come home. So in 2021, because at that time, all of the traveling to Canada, you had to isolate for 2 weeks, and being in Olympic level shape and athlete, you can't take 2 weeks to sit off in your apartment at home. So we kind of transferred to Brazil, and we were able to train outside, but frankly, other than that, I just kept to myself.
We could talk for hours about the COVID experience, but I am sensitive of your time, um, and we do have to get through one more Olympics. And
Yeah.
and this is a very interesting Olympics. This is the most recent one, the one that just happened.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
so Heather, you do have to we got to finish the story. If it is finished, who knows? Maybe it's not even finished. We won't go there. But the finish of the story up to this point. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna try to tell some of the story. You've retired at some point. Is that true?
Yes. So we go to
And
Tokyo.
someone drags you back in. Am I
Yeah.
getting this right?
So
One more run here. Paris, they're going to have the Eiffel Tower in the background. It's going to look amazing. Heather, come back for one more Olympics. That's what happened, right? So you tell
yeah.
it. You tell it.
So I anyways, I ended up retiring after Tokyo after the Tokyo Olympics. We finished fifth there, me and Brandy, and we ended up kind of like talking after the Olympics, and Brandy decided that she wanted to play with somebody else, and so if I'm honest, I was just surprised by that, and I thought that we would continue playing together. I thought that. Like that I would continue playing. And so just kind of thinking about my partner options and what I wanted to do and where I was at in my life, it just, I didn't have any strong partnership options. And I said, okay, like this doesn't make sense for me to keep going. Our national team offered me a coaching job. With our next gen, our junior team. So I said, okay, like I'll take this kind of, it's a nice sort of stepping stone, and I can see
Great
if I want
stepping
to
stone.
pursue coaching or pursue something else. So yeah, I transitioned. I went into coaching kind of right away. I was an assistant coach for 6 months, and then our head coach, the head coach of the women's program, she ended up leaving. So the head coach position became available. So I then took over as head coach of our women's program for our junior national team. So I think a job that many people would like love to have, and I think was like, and I think it was an incredible opportunity. But I will say, I was just looking back, I wasn't prepared for it, and then I wasn't. I think because I wasn't ready to retire, or I thought that I would keep going. There was still sort of this like little pilot light burning inside. Whenever I would see people playing, or I was obviously around the sport so much, and I would, you know, jump
You're
into
thinking I
practice
can
here
still
and
do
there.
that.
And yeah, yeah. And so there was some like partnership breakups and kind of change ups and whatnot. And so early, kind of the spring of 2023, Sophie approached me and said, "Hey, like, would you want to do this with me? Like, do you want to try to qualify together?"
Good for Sophie.
Um, Yeah, I'll give her credit. She definitely like has no problem going out and
Persuasive?
asking for what she wants. Yeah. And I think there was absolutely part of me that immediately was like, of course I want to do this. As an athlete, as a competitor. But it did take me some time to really think like, is this practical? But yeah, ultimately in June of 2023, I said yes.
June of 23, you say yes. So you got a year to
Yep.
get ready, basically.
Yes.
So
Yep.
let me ask you this, because Heather, the last class of my course, okay, one of my favorite classes. It's called Performance for the Ages, okay, and we look at in the first part we look at physical performance in youth, and then the last, because as you might be able to tell, this is of relevance to me, performance as you get older, and I think it's fascinating. And we got to be honest here. We're speaking scientifically. There's no offense here, but now you're 37, right?
Hmm.
36, I guess, when you say I'm going to go back for one more kick at the
Yeah.
can. We got to be honest here. 37, from an athletic point of view, that's not your physical prime in theory. But my question for you that I was going to say, I'm going to ask you the same question, Heather, that I asked you previously, and you need to answer honestly. Heather Bansley, version 3.0, 37 years old, Paris Olympics 2024. Are you a better or worse or equal rate, I guess, your skills as a beach volleyball player, okay, skills, tactics, whatever, and then do the same B with Heather Bansley as a physical specimen, the physical credentials necessary, How is this now at the age of 37 in the Paris 2024 Olympics? So talk about both the physical skills and the strategy and the mental component of being a beach volleyball player, and then talk about physically how are you at the last Olympics?
Yeah. Um, I would say at the time that I would say that Sophie asked me, I had been retired for a couple of years, and so my physicality wasn't there. But obviously there was part of me that believed that, that I could. I think a big part of my journey, my personal journey was just trying to accept where I was at physically, because I wasn't going to be in a position where I had been playing for the last, 3 years, like everybody else on tour. Everybody, had that last 3 years to kind of get in shape, build their partnership kind of thing, and I had a year. And so I think it was, I had, I'd still been working out, but just not at the level of an Olympic athlete, because I was working full time. But yeah, I think I liked the challenge, but I knew that I also knew what it took, and I knew what I had to do. I knew that I was capable of doing everything that I had to do, and I also knew that I had, the mental, um,
Uh, my guess would
and
be mentally you're better than you were 12 years
yeah,
young,
I
12
think
years
I
younger.
knew how to, yes, and I definitely knew how to stress manage, and I knew how, I knew how important like a good partnership would be, and how, like how close we would have to work together, and like kind of do a crash course and trying to qualify for the Olympics in 11 months. So I believed in my abilities there, and I think, I said yes because I missed the sport, and it was like, what, I'm never going to have an opportunity to come back, to sport after this, or I shouldn't say never, but it was sort of like, as we talk about getting older, like, I was like, this is sort of my last chance, and let's do it. And I knew if I didn't say yes, I would regret it.
You could be a 41-year-old Olympic beach volleyball player, but we're not going to go.
Absolutely,
We're
and
not.
they've been there. They've been
Of
there. I
course they
don't think I
have.
want to be, but um, yeah. So I would say, I mean, even getting back into shape in the volleyball, and I was pleasantly surprised with how quickly like my volleyball skills came back, and I think that I owe that to the amount of training that I had done before, and that what I knew, I knew what it would take. I knew that I had to, like the amount of effort that I would have to put in, and I would say like I had to commit so much extra time to my rehab and my prehab and my recovery and taking care of those things. Like, recovering as a 36-year-old is definitely different than, a 21-year-old. Um, but I kind of was prepared for all of
If anyone
that
out there
going
is not
into it.
36, just wait till you get there and you'll realize what Heather's saying.
Yeah, and
But well worth it,
and
I think, Heather. Well worth it to come back for a third
totally,
Olympics.
and I just kind of said like, if, I I have no regrets. I'm happy that I've, like really fortunate that I had this opportunity to do it. And yeah, long story short, obviously we qualified. We had the best results. We even medaled on tour 3 times. Um,
Great year.
and
It
so
was a
yeah, we
great year.
had we had the best results of the Canadian team, and so we kind of, were able to qualify through our continental championships. And um, yeah, I mean, like one of the driving forces of me wanting to go to the Olympics was seeing those images of the beach volleyball court in front of the Eiffel Tower,
It was
and
awesome.
being able to then have my family and my friends come, because we talked about COVID Olympics a little bit, but yeah, there was nobody in the stands, there was no family, no friends,
Total bummer.
so total bummer. And then to retire after that was like, my family was like, okay, well, we don't get to see you play for the last, like, 2 years. So it was a really special moment for me to be able to, represent Canada at the Olympics for a third time, and then also kind of share that with my family and my friends, once more. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Heather, you got an
Yeah.
unbelievable story, and I'm going to say thank you for sharing it with us. Um, I, we could talk all night, and we had a great conversation. But before you go, Heather, do you mind? Can you hang around just to play Canada's new favorite game show, 10 Questions?
I would love to. Yes.
Oh, you'd love to. That's even better. And some of these I'm going to incorporate. Usually, this is all fun and games, but there's some interesting things I think that we might uncover here in the 10 questions, Heather. We didn't get to in the body of our interview here, but we do have to cover a few things. And I'm going to start the 10 questions by getting you to talk a bit about the whole issue of body image, Heather. And I thought this would be a good thing to talk about, particularly as it pertains to the sport of beach volleyball, because maybe, I don't know, maybe more than any other sport, especially the females, beach volleyball athletes, they're scrutinized, I think, in a way that is not entirely like other sports, if I may say that. With all due respect to all the female athletes, they're all scrutinized, for goodness sake. There's no question about that. But beach volleyball is different. So when someone brings up the topic to you of body image as a three-time Olympic beach volleyball athlete, Heather, what kind of thoughts come to mind? What do you have to say about the whole topic as question number one here in our 10 questions?
Um, Geez, I obviously have lots of thoughts on this, especially as a
We could
woman
do
in
a whole other
sport.
interview on this topic, I think.
We
But
absolutely could. We
but
absolutely could.
but I'd love to hear what you have to say. Honestly, I think it's a very important topic for female athletes listening. This is important stuff, I think. So
Yeah,
whatever thoughts you
yeah,
have, I'd be interested, and so would they, I think.
yeah. I think, geez, when I think of like body image, I also kind of goes hand in hand with uniforms um, because as you know, in beach volleyball, we're often wearing our bikinis and sports bras, and so I think there is this pressure to look a certain way in your uniform. Um, but I also will say, like, and do I feel that pressure? Absolutely. I think all women
So you're
do.
saying are you
Um,
speaking personally?
Personally, yes, of course, yeah.
You feel like you got to look a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, you look around. I mean, I think all athletes would do this, but you look around and you look at your peers in the sport, your competitors, and they all look a certain way. And I think there's sort of this expectation or this pressure to also look a certain way. And even when you go on tour, you can't help it, but when you're at an event, they provide food for you, and you all are kind of in a general dining area, restaurant, cafeteria, and everybody's kind of checking out each other's plates and what are they eating and what are they doing and what are those exercises they're doing in the gym. So you're constantly comparing yourself to other athletes. And I think that's like the competitive nature of sport, but also, there's
Human nature.
yeah, absolutely. But when it comes to body image, I think there's so much pressure there. And, it really took me as I, it took me a while to realize, my body is my body is how I make money. My body is my tool. Like I'm really proud to be strong and like that that's my body allows me to play a sport for a living and I should be proud of that and I have to take care of it. But that, just we talked about food, we talked about strength and conditioning, and how those are things that allow me to perform. And what do I need to perform at my best? And realizing those. And I think, you know, it, I didn't get there immediately, but having a team of people who, like that surrounded us and having a team of women, especially. And I think the big thing in beach volleyball is making sure that athletes specifically eat more. I know like our dietitian,
You're again, you're
our
preaching to the
physios, our
choir, man.
doctors are, yeah, I think, so many athletes or female athletes, I should say, or athletes in general, it's not just women, but tend to undereat, and so just making sure sometimes I just have to be like, is this helping my performance? Or remembering like, okay, I need to do this for my performance because I need to do this to make money. It's a learning curve like anything else, but I also think it can be tough as, as somebody who is an athlete, and people are constantly kind of criticizing whatever you eat or what you drink, or people, if you're out at a dinner party and someone says, "Oh, can you eat that?" or "Should you be having that glass of wine?" And I think as a younger athlete, I would have maybe kind of thought about it a little bit more. But as I kind of matured and figured out what works for me and what I like, and also becoming more confident in who I am, is able to kind of say like, hey, like it's not okay for you to ask those questions, just because I'm an athlete, but especially because as a female athlete. And I think maybe society thinks that it's okay, to ask people that, and especially ask women that. But just sort of normalizing, like trusting that athletes know what's best for their body, or that they're going to make those decisions. And
You're the second female athlete that I've had that brought up the idea of, well, there's a term for it, Heather, REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport. And
mhm,
the summary would be, you said it. I mean, if you're an Olympic level athlete, you probably, the succinct advice probably is you got to eat more. Anyway,
yeah,
we could talk.
I know it's funny. Well, I'll just add one more point, but it's like, I've gotten used to eating as much. I have three brothers, so like gotten used to eating as much, if not more, than they do now. Even my partner eating more than he does, and like it's
Because is your partner an Olympic athlete? Three-time Olympian? Is he a
no,
three-time
oh,
Olympian?
absolutely not. No,
No. Well, there you go. So,
no,
so
yeah. But yeah, I think like being okay with that, and being able to kind of laugh about it and steal food off of his plate.
uh, as well you should. All right. Again, we could talk all night, Heather, about these things, body image, whatnot. Let's lighten the mood here. We got 9 questions left and 10 questions. Ready to go? We're
Yeah.
gonna lighten the mood, Heather. Question number 2: what is the best breed of dog?
Oh, well, that's easy because I have a little pit bull mix. So I have a little
I didn't know
tripod
that was easy.
Terry Fox.
I didn't know that was easy, but that's your answer. What's the best? Okay. Let's do a few more nutrition related questions. Now, you did talk about how you're a bit of a foodie. Okay, I know nutrition and cooking is a big thing for you. Heather, here's the question number 3. If you were on one of those reality cooking shows and you had to make one thing for the purposes of impressing people, what does Heather Bansley make?
I don't know if this would like impress anybody, but I'm usually like a really good bowl and salad maker, and I love salad. Anybody who knows me knows that I love salad, and so I'd probably make like a really like nice gourmet salad with like I do like a nice grilled flank steak as the protein option.
There you go. Lovely. Question number 4, also a nutrition question. You described for us in very good expert detail the intricacies of a beach volleyball game. Okay. My question is, Heather, if you could pinpoint one piece of nutritional advice during the performance of a beach volleyball game, what comes to mind?
Oh, if it's
Nutrition during the beach
during,
volleyball game.
yeah, if
Just
it's
during.
during, I
You're,
would
I'm
say,
going to set it up for you. You're on the sand. The Eiffel Tower's in the background.
yeah.
And the game's happening. Nutrition? What are you considering?
Yeah. Um, I mean, typically in a sport you're like in a like high energy expenditure, you want to make sure you're replenishing that. I think if it's during an event, you got to find something that you like and that you'll actually drink or eat. So, I have a sports beverage that I really like. I don't like sugary things, so I usually tend to like put dump salt into things, or if you're somebody who likes bananas, or applesauce. Like, I think the biggest thing is just finding something that you genuinely like and that you will eat, because if you have something and you're not going to eat it, then it's useless.
There you go.
Yeah.
Good advice. All right, question number 5. Give me an autobiography you'd recommend reading.
Okay, I just finished reading Viola Davis's autobiography. Actually, I listened to the audiobook, which I don't usually do, but she did win many awards for this audiobook, and it was excellent. So, Viola Davis, Finding Me is the most recent one I just finished yesterday.
There you go. Question number 6. Piggybacking on this, I did a bit of homework, by the way, Heather, about you. What is
I
the
can tell.
best thing? What is the best thing you had to read during your undergraduate degree from, by the way, one more time, just a shout out. What is the best thing you
Oh
had
my
to read
gosh, now
during your
you're making me
undergraduate
like
degree?
think back. Okay, I will say one of my like surprisingly favorite courses was science fiction and fantasy, because I was an English lit major. And so it wasn't like I would have never kind of um, picked that course for myself, but it was the kind of like expanding outside of the normal. And I was so pleasantly surprised, and I loved like all of the books. I remember we got to read um, Dune and I Dream of Electric Sheep. And yeah, I really enjoyed that.
There you go. Tremendous answer. Tremendous answer. Question number 7. Uh, where's the coolest place in the world volleyball has taken you?
Oh, um, I mean, aside from just like underneath the Eiffel Tower, um,
That could be the answer, I guess.
yeah, I think one of my favorite places is in the Swiss Alps. They have a tournament in Stade every year, and it is just breathtaking because it's literally in a ski village in the middle of the Swiss Alps, and it's one of my favorite spots.
There you go. We got 3 questions left. Question number 8. Who is the funniest teammate you ever had in your lifetime and why?
Um, it's funny
Funniest teammate.
when Sophie and I paired up, she actually gave me a really good compliment. She's like, "Oh my gosh, you're really funny. I didn't know that about you." Uh, so I think if I could say, I'm usually the funny one in a partnership. Um, yeah.
That is a thinking outside the box answer, Heather. That's fantastic. All right, question number 9. This is my standard question. Every athlete gets asked this question. Heather Bansley, what is your 1 rep max bench press?
Oh gosh, I don't usually bench press. I don't know if that's like a bad.
I'm joking. I'm being sarcastic, Heather. I do ask this question to everybody, but yeah, it's,
I
it's meant
actually
to
don't bench
it's meant to
press.
be funny.
Yeah,
So you have no idea. The answer
I have
is
no
you have
idea.
no idea. That's an answer. That's an answer. And
Undetermined.
there you go. And my final question, Heather, you've been to 3 Olympics. What was the best opening or closing ceremony?
Um, I will say I didn't get to participate in any of them in Tokyo. For me, my favorite opening ceremony was in Rio, because we got to like have that stadium moment where we walk into the stadium, and so we were all of Team Canada. We were waiting in the tunnel of the stadium before walking in, and we all started singing "Oh Canada," and it was just one of those moments as an athlete, where you get super emotional, you get really teary. It was my first Olympics. Kind of like had worked so hard for this moment, and to be able to, yeah, have all of those feels and then walk into the stadium, just to all of the cheers, and that was just a moment that I will never ever forget.
What a beautiful answer. And believe it or not, it goes beautifully with how I was going to conclude here because, Heather, I think look at all the stuff we talked about here today. Not only how to be the best possible beach volleyball player you can possibly be, we talked about how to be, I think, dare I say, a good human being and a good Canadian, as you've represented Canada on 3 separate occasions. Represented also, I'll say one, I told you I wasn't going to do this again, but I'll do it one last time. Represented the University of Toronto also. So, for Heather, for all these things that you have done up until this evening, and with this evening now I'll include you doing this great interview with me, thank you so, so very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Go Blues.
Go Blues! And as I always sign off, not only go Blues, let's go Canada. Support Canadian athletes.
Yeah.